Welcome back, everybody, to episode 22 of New York State of Sports. Ricky Keeler back with you. Hope you're enjoying this fine Thursday. We have so much to get into on the show today, of course. There's a Game 6 tonight in Philadelphia. Knicks, Sixers. Knicks trying once again to seal a berth in round 2. But another 2-minute report comes out. It wasn't good for Knicks fans. Should we care? Should we not care? And what's the key stat that will determine whether the series is over? Or will there be a Game 7 Saturday? The Giants and the Jets will recap their drafts. I'm sure every team likes what they do, but did both teams address key needs? The Yankees are in Baltimore trying to salvage a split, while the Mets are getting over a weird blocking call at home plate last night. We'll dive into that. And we'll look ahead to round 2. Rangers, Hurricanes in Carolina, in the Garden, beginning this weekend. It's all coming up next on New York State of Sports. See you in a bit. Follow me on X at Ricknator555. Follow the show on X or Twitter at NY State Sports IE. Feel free to email me, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. Always happy to hear your suggestions, questions, topics you want me to talk about on air. Always happy to hear that. Of course, since we're actually live on a Thursday, feel free to join in on the chat here on Spreaker as Mr. Larry B is here. Larry, how are you today? So let's talk Knicks. We dove into Game 5 in depth on the post-game show a couple of days ago, so we're not going to go too big into the particulars of Game 5, because if you're a Knicks fan, why do you want to look back at misery? Like, there's no point in looking back at the past. You got to look to the present. Ralph, how are you, man? Glad to hear from you. Taryn, great to hear from you as well. Got a lively chat here today. Happy to see that. So here's the thing. Yesterday, last 2-minute report comes out again. And it comes out that Tyrese Maxey, before the foul, the 4-point play, traveled. Then you have a case where Jalen Brunson takes a shot at the end of regulation. The ball lands out of bounds. There should have been 0.4 back on the clock for the Knicks to get an inbounds play underneath the basket for a chance to avoid overtime. That didn't happen. There was another play where Nicholas Batumar called for a foul against Jalen Brunson. It should have been a foul. And then there was a fourth one that Josh Hart was ruled out of bounds. But Josh Hart actually saved the ball. This was about 40 seconds to go in overtime. You get why the NBA does a 2-minute report, but it's useless. Yes, I know they're trying to protect everything with the gambling money thrown in, but when you work at a job, and your boss tells you there's a problem, the next response should be, well, how do you fix the problem? Because I'm sorry, officiating has become the center point of this series. Whether it's Philly feeling robbed in Game 2, whether it's the Knicks feeling that Joel Embiid should have got thrown out in Game 3, to the last 2-minute report in Game 5. And of course, the big thing tonight, the lead ref in Game 6, which you can catch at 9 o'clock Eastern on TNT following Bucks-Pacers Game 6, Scott Foster's the lead ref tonight. And if you know the reputation around Scott Foster, it's the series extender. Why does the NBA make it where officiating has to be the center point of the series? I don't know. I don't know why it's become that way. We shouldn't be really talking about this kind of thing with this game. Because all respect to Tyrese Maxey, and to be honest, the Knicks really shouldn't put themselves in this situation to begin with. But you have a play where if Maxey is called for the travel, and there was some people I was watching ESPN today where they were saying, oh, that nobody was making a big deal about the travels. Why did they even mention it? There were people on Twitter that I saw that brought up the travel, I think, Wednesday morning as a possibility. It's hard to call that real time, but if that call was made, the Knicks, all they have to do is hit one free throw. They go up 7 with about 24 seconds left. The game's essentially over. So it's really tough to really think about why and it's hard to officiate. I was an official for like youth basketball, and it's not easy. Which you could tell why people are like, well, how do you fix officiating? You got to get new officials, but it's not really a position that's desired because of the scrutiny you take in this day and age of social media. But that's what I wanted to bring up. Jen, nice to hear from you as well. And yeah, Ralph, 9 p.m. You can't tell me that one game couldn't be on TNT and one game couldn't be on ESPN tonight. You could have had Bucks Pacers at 6:30 and then Knicks Sixers at 8. But the NBA doesn't want both games to conflict with each other. 9 o'clock for a game in Philadelphia is ridiculous. I get that's what they do for the finals, but I don't understand it. But let's look at a little bit in detail here. And I mentioned one stat that would be the key to tonight's game. Rebounding. The team that has won the rebounding edge in the first, usually in the series, has won in each game, has won that game. Sixers were much better on the offensive glass in Game 5, and you look at a game that Ralph says in the chat that's going to be a war, you're looking at a low-scoring game. Both these teams have had numerous stretches where they struggle to score. You got a Sixers team that if Maxey's not scoring, they have a tough time getting shots in. If Jalen Brunson's not getting shots in for the Knicks, it's the same thing. Got to get on the glass. Got to get those offensive boards. Those tip outs from Hartenstein. Those tip outs from Robinson. Those tip outs from Precious Achiuwa. Those have to happen in this game. And yes, you got to put Precious in. I know the Knicks don't want to do 3 centers, but got to get more bodies on the floor. You got to extend this rotation, at least one player. It may be too much to ask Alec Burks to come in because he's dealing with the shoulder issue and he was really a non-factor after they traded for him. But he can't give you 3 minutes, 4 minutes, give you any kind of shooting off the bench because right now, other than Deuce McBride, they don't have shooting to speak of. They're going to have to muck it up. And if you're going to get into that physical, low-scoring game, you've got to rebound. And that's where Josh Hart, I think, is going to be the X factor in this game. Game 4, he couldn't make shots, but he had 17 rebounds. He's going to need that kind of game tonight. Another key stat is Dante DiVincenzo, who outside of that made 3 to end Game 2, has done nothing in this series. And there's a stat I saw Tommy Beer had on Twitter. The Knicks are 3-0 in this series when DiVincenzo makes multiple threes. They're 0-3, 0-2 when he doesn't. So the key is you got to find a way to get him going. He couldn't get going in Game 3. You saw he was so bad in Game 5 that Tom Thibodeau didn't even put him in for the bulk of overtime. And you're telling me he couldn't have been a spark there to get something going? And he said in the post-game press conference, you got to keep shooting. Well, how's he going to find a shot if he's not on the floor? That's a big key. We told you at the start of the series, the Sixers had done an excellent job defending Dante DiVincenzo. And if the Knicks don't have that second scorer, Jalen Brunson can't go for 40 every night as much as he's got 47 in Game 4, 40 in Game 5. Is he going to go for 40 again? You can't. It's a high bar that Jalen Brunson has set for himself. But the Knicks need that. The same way the Sixers probably need 35 to 40 from Tyrese Maxey because let's be honest, I was thinking of this yesterday. By comparison right now to Joel Embiid, he's almost to the point where it's like the Monstars in Space Jam that got their talent taken away. But the NBA players got their talent taken away. He doesn't look like the same guy. He looks tired. The leg is affecting him. He had 9 turnovers in Game 5. But he became much better at passing the ball to Maxey. He's deferring. And if you're the Knicks, if you're going to double Joel Embiid, you cannot have the guy that's guarding Maxey join the double. You have to do everything you can to face guard Maxey. The second he gives up the ball, you don't let him get it back. Because Philly's proven they essentially won Game 5 with one guy. And all respect to Maxey, that's why I think he's not hated by Knicks fans as much as Embiid is, because that was just a show, an absolute classic he put on Tuesday with the 46 points and hitting the three from the logo, which, again, you would think Deuce McBride should have fouled in the backcourt before it even got the shot off. But they ran a play that designed to not foul, so very tricky situation. I'm going with the Sixers tonight. And it's not that I don't think the Knicks can't win this game. They're only underdogs by 2.5. We saw Philly get off the mat after Game 2 to win Game 3 with an epic third quarter, but the problem for the Knicks right now is they don't start off fast. They've been awful to start games. They put themselves in 8 to 10 point deficits that they do eventually recover from, but you can't do that tonight. Philly gets up 10 to 12 points in the first quarter, feeds off this crowd, which you saw Michael Rubin buying tickets to get Philly fans to come to the game, which is ridiculous. That's the paranoia right now that Sixers have about New York fans invading the building like they did in Games 3 and 4. And if you're a Knicks fan listening and you have a chance to get to the game, I hope you found a way there tonight. But if Philly gets up 12 in a game that should be low scoring, it's going to be really tough to come back. The Knicks started slow in the first quarter in Game 5, then started slow in the second half of Game 5 as well. You cannot have that happen. If you get up 6-8, if Embiid hits the bench, you have to go on an 8-0 run. You have to go on a 10-2 run. It's an unfair expectation, but you have to do it. It's the postseason. And Josh Hart was a quote I saw from Josh Hart today that said, people forget that we're missing Julius Randle and his 24 points and 9 boards. But here's the problem. Julius Randle was a no-show a couple postseasons ago against the Hawks. And does he really fix the scoring issue? He might fix the depth issue, where he might get Randall come in, maybe Hart gets a breather and an Obi gets a breather or something like that. I agree with that entirely. But is Julius Randle fixing what the Knicks' problems are in this series? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% definite that that's the case. I think you'd miss him like going into like a series with Boston or something like that. But what exactly is this team missing? And this team is resilient. It's gritty. It has a lot of guts. I wouldn't be shocked if they won tonight. But this is screaming Game 7 Saturday at the Garden, where it would be a nervous, excited energy. And if this series gets to Game 7, I'd find it hard to believe that Philly, who has played well in all 3 games of the Garden, wouldn't feel confident they can go in there and win. Saw Nick Nurse basically saying, well, the Garden crowd wasn't loud to me. I think they're bothered but not bothered by it. I think the Knicks fan is sick of the Sixers. It's become one of those great rivalries. But I saw, was it 1989, the series ended on this date. So who knows if the series ends tonight. I just think Embiid's going to play a little bit better. When you get the role players at home, maybe you see Kelly Oubre continue to play well. Kyle Lowry maybe hits a couple of threes. And if nobody else is going to score with Jalen Brunson, right now, if it's tough to think that anybody else will. You got to see it. Is Josh Hart going to start hitting threes like he did in the first 2 games, or is he going to slump? Is DiVincenzo going to find it? Is OG Anunoby, who I think has been the second most consistent offensive player, is he going to take a little bit more shots? Because if this game becomes ISO one-on-one Maxey versus Brunson, Sixers are winning this game. The strength of the Knicks is as a team. T-E-A-M, team. And I know Brunson kind of maybe forgot that in overtime the other night, but they've got to find a way to fix it. So here's the deal. If the Knicks win Game 1 against Indiana or Milwaukee, and big news, by the way, on the Bucks front, Damian Lillard is questionable. He was doubtful last night. He is questionable today. So there is a chance that Damian Lillard plays for the Bucks tonight in Indiana, if the Bucks win, they force Game 7. But regardless of Game 6 or Game 7, if the Knicks win, Game 1 versus the Pacers or Bucks would be Monday at MSG. A loss by the Knicks tonight means Game 7 Saturday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, at the Garden. in terms of post games, there is not going to be one tonight, and there will not be one on Saturday. Since the Rangers will play Sunday, we'll have a chance to talk about both the Rangers and Knicks in a post game on Sunday. I have a prior engagement going on that, as I mentioned on the last post game show, that kind of prevents me from really getting in a big post game show for you guys tonight at midnight on Thursday. So, keep an eye for that. You can follow along, of course, to me. I'll try to tweet some of the game at NY State Sports IE. I'm always happy to hear from you. If you're feeling any questions about the game, check that out. Marcus, how are you? And Larry, thanks for the shout out. I really appreciate that. But again, it's just hard to feel confident that this team is going to pull that together. And anybody would feel pressure in this spot. I mean, I said it on the show the other night. If the Knicks lose this series, even if they win it, this series is speaking, you have to go get a superstar. Marcus, I'm sorry the Knicks cost you money. I'm sure they cost a lot of people money, because I know when McBride hit that shot, the game looked over. And the crowd sensed it was over, felt that kind of the jubilation and the exhale. But if the Knicks, you got to stop treating these games like you just won the championship. They've been good now for the last few years. This isn't the doom and gloom anymore. You have to have an expectation of this team actually winning now. I think we're past the whole excitement and the surprise of everything. Want to remind you that this show, as well as the other shows, network brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, low in sugar, and high in protein. Planet Jerky, the jerky that is on a whole other planet. You can follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. And you can go to the website, planetjerky.net. So we'll take our first break. We'll come back and we'll talk draft. Giants and Jets. And some real interesting things going on with both those teams, particularly on the Giants front. They didn't draft a quarterback, but what does that exactly mean? We'll talk about that next here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey, Cleveland and Columbus sports fans. This is Jen B, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen B on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
Double dose of Jen drops here in the first commercial break. Jen, of course, is sure following her Cavs closely. Game 6 tomorrow night in that series in Orlando. I picked the Magic going in. That's been a fun series that really nobody paid attention to. When you look at Game 5 and lost in the shuffle of the whole Maxey thing was, hey, on NBA TV, Gus Johnson's calling a Magic Cavs game down to the wire. I don't get it. But that series has been fun. I think both those teams, I think it will go 7. So I think you'll get a Game 7 Sunday at some point. Welcome back here on New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all their sports. Ricky Keeler back with you as we get set to talk NFL Draft. And here's my thing. We're going to dive into the picks a little bit, and then we're going to look at kind of the repercussions from one team's picks or lack thereof. Let's start with the Giants. We talked about their round 1 picks last week, so we're not going to really dive into the match. You could go check out the post-game show from last week that we did a week from Thursday. So starting with the Giants' second-round pick, they take a safety out of Minnesota, Tyler Nubin. It doesn't make sense. I mean, the Giants losing Xavier McKinney in free agency to the Packers, they had to get some depth in the secondary. So to do that, they added Nubin. And one of the things that was interesting, Nick Saban, who was doing the college game day for the first time at the draft in Detroit, said that he thinks that Nick Nubin is the best safety in the class. So for the Giants to get a top safety in the second round and not pay premium dollars for that position, I think is a big deal. So you got to like what Nubin can bring to the table. Good versatility, good instincts. So I like what the Giants did there. Third round, they go and get Andrew Phillips, a cornerback from Kentucky. They add him to Deontay Banks on the secondary. So again, you're looking at the Giants addressing the secondary positions with their next 2 picks as they're getting the skill threat in Neighbors. Fourth round, they get Theo Johnson, the tight end of Penn State. Of course, the big thing right now is whether or not Darren Waller is going to retire. If he does not, you have a good 1-2 tight end matchup. Johnson's one of the better pass-catching tight ends in the class. And the Giants need skill position weapons. So now you have Neighbors at wide receiver, Johnson at tight ends. You kind of fit in. And Johnson wasn't really in a system at Penn State that was big on throwing the football. So you get to see kind of more of his accolades there. Because when you watch Penn State's offense, there's a lot to be desired from them during the year. Fifth round, they go get Tyrone Tracy Jr., the running back from Purdue. Look, the Giants needed a backup running back. Right now it's Devin Singletary, Eric Gray, and Gary Brightwell. When you lose Saquon Barkley, you kind of need some speed there out of the backfield, at least an option. And Tracy was the wide receiver that now goes to running back, kind of that Deebo Samuel kind of mold. So you like with the Giants at least addressing running back, even though they don't add another vet to pair with Singletary, they take one in a 5th round pick. And then in the 6th round, they take Darius Muasu, a linebacker out of UCLA. Giants had their special teams coordinator, Michael Gabriel, work with him out in Hawaii. So at least there's familiarity, can help with the defense, help special teams. So those are the Giants' picks. And the big thing with the Giants is they didn't take a quarterback. And Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network was the big thing a couple days ago. The Giants still feel that Drew Lock could be their starting quarterback. So it's clear. With all the talk about Drake May and all the talk that May was the only one that they wanted to go up for, I don't buy the report from Adam Schefter last week that he said the Giants were maybe looking at Joe Alt. It was Drake May or no quarterback at all. And it shows you there, Daniel Jones' era is slowly coming to an end. Can Drew Lock actually beat him out for the job? And Lock had some decent moments with Seattle last year. But regardless of Lock beats him or not, it's clear the Giants are not content with Daniel Jones going forward. And it's up to Daniel Jones to prove him wrong. But as I've said over the last weeks and months on this show, you have to at least give Daniel Jones a chance with some skill position players. And getting Neighbors and Johnson's going to help. Really, it was just Saquon Barkley. You add Wan'Dale Robinson now. Hopefully he's healthy. You get him into the mix. And Slayton, like, he needs a chance to show he can actually do it. He did it a couple years ago. So if Drake May was truly your guy, then go the extra mile and give up the picks. If it's just a 6th rounder and a 1st rounder next year, then give him a 2nd rounder next year. Make the offer to where the Patriots can't refuse it. If that's your guy and you want to go get that guy, then make the move. Risk your future. And that's the thing. If Joe Shane put all the chips in Drake May and Drake May doesn't work out, Joe Shane gets fired. So that's a big risk that they take here by not going up. I'm sure they tried to get him, but it takes 2 to tango, as we talked about. So that's a big thing to watch going into training camp. Is Jeremiah said they were comparing Daniel Jones and Drew Lock, emphasis on Drew Lock, to the quarterbacks that were going to be there at 6, and the line for them was Drake May. So when you're comparing Drew Lock to Drake May, Daniel Jones is already not looking too good. As for the Jets, we talked about Fashanu. I love the pick at 11. They go up into the 3rd round to take Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. Corley's the guy that could break the top off of defense with his speed. This is a player I think the Jets really wanted in this draft, and to be able to not have to go up into round 2, but go into the first pick of round 3 to land him, gives another weapon for Aaron Rodgers on offense. They get Braylon Allen, the running back out of Wisconsin, with their 4th round pick. We all know Wisconsin running backs have a good track record. Allen's more of that between the tackles kind of back. The Jets also had another type of those runners with Isaiah Davis from South Dakota State in round 5. So Breece Hall is going to be your scat back, catch the ball to the backfield kind of guy, and you got Allen and Davis that can be that between the tackles kind of running backs, which really rounds out this Jet offense. 2 picks before Davis, they take Jordan Travis, the quarterback out of Florida State. I love this pick. And it's not because he's going to start or be the future quarterback for the Jets. Maybe he is. But the one thing you notice, go back to college. I'm not looking at his collegiate stats, as good as they are. 20 touchdowns, 2 picks in 11 games. It was what happened to Florida State when he went down with that injury at the end of the year. And think about the leadership that he showed on that sideline. Think about how that team rallied around him. It's a guy that can lead. And then now bring that into your locker room. Jeremiah Johnson, who's on the Jets, there was an article I read that he pushed for the team to draft Jordan Travis. If he's not special as a quarterback, it sounds like he's special with intangibles. And that could help at any time. And he's a dual threat guy. You give him time to rehab and get fully healthy. He can learn not only from Aaron Rodgers, but learn from Tyrod Taylor. The Jets have a much better quarterback room now that can mentor a young guy. So to get Travis at that pick, if it doesn't work out that he's a starter for them in a couple of years, at least I think he can play a value in other ways for this team. So I love that. Was probably my outside of Fashanu and Corley, that was probably my favorite pick the Jets had. 7th round, another 5th round pick. They took Quantez Stiggers, probably one of my favorite names in the draft. Quantez Stiggers. He's a cornerback that was drafted directly from the Canadian Football League. He spent some time at the Fan-Controlled Football League in 2022, which I think was one of those leagues where fans can pick what's going on in terms of the plays that gets called or something like that. Last year with the Argonauts, he had 5 picks, 56 tackles in 16 games as a player that has a nose for the football. But Stiggers is a cool, again, you get a cool story like this, and we'll see if he makes an impact on a defense that has a lot of options. And the Jets, with their Mr. Irrelevant pick, went and took Jalen Key in the 7th round. Defensive back at Alabama, transfer from UAB, 60 tackles last year, ran a 4.6 40-yard dash. Stiggers, I read, was around, Davis was around a 4.6, 4.57, but yeah, every decimal point is big. But the Jets adding some defensive depth with their last 2 picks to that secondary. Look, every team is going to tell you that they like their draft. what team is going to go to the media and say, "Oh, I hate that. I hated we made that pick." That's why I don't do grades. That's why I don't like. We're going to know how good this draft is 4 years from now. If you want to talk about the immediacy of the NFL, it's probably more so 3 years. But time's going to tell it a lot of these guys. But the Jets, my favorite pick would be Jordan Travis. For the Giants, again, we're taking out the top 2 picks. I like Theo Johnson. I think adding a tight end into the mix as a safety blanket for your quarterback, and with Waller's availability up in the air, that's a need the Giants desperately had. And to get a guy in round 4, I think you absolutely sign up for it. So I want to remind you that for the last almost 10 years, IE Sports Radio has brought you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and much more. Let's keep up with the latest in sports and with our shows. Check out our daily updated website, iesportsradio.com, for the latest news, IE Sports Radio blog, the Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month, pages dedicated to each podcast, our community forum. Why don't you stop by the shop and check out some awesome merch? Thank you for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. So we'll take another time out. We'll come back. We'll talk baseball. Yankees and Mets are both in action right now. So we will talk about both those teams in different situations. Yankees out in Baltimore, Mets at home against the Cubs. And both these teams, I think, have some interesting decisions to make going forward. You're listening to New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all their sports. We will be right back after this.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph Calise, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate, diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold, have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Calise, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Locke.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Check out David's Fast Break show here on the network every Sunday. He's going to dive into the second round matchups. A great one, Minnesota and Denver coming up this weekend. Maybe if the Knicks make it to round 2, you'll hear Davidson on a post-game show if the Knicks do make it there. Welcome back here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all this sports, New York State Sports. Ricky Keeler back with you. Follow me on Twitter, @Rickenator555. Follow the show on Twitter, @NY State Sports IE, as we get set to talk some Yankees and some Mets. Again, both those teams in action right now. I'll give you the score of both those games. Orioles are up 3-1 in the top of the fifth inning. Yankees have runners at the corners. It's been a rough stretch for the Yankees offense. That scored 30 runs over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday in Milwaukee. And now against the Orioles, they're finding a tough time how to score anything. But that's the nature of this offense. Juan Soto's trying to do everything. He's got 8 home runs. He's doing the shuffle every time, making Dean Kramer angry. And Soto's like, I'm sure he was angry when he hit the home run. And that's what you love about Juan Soto. You love the energy and the enthusiasm he is bringing to the Bronx and that edge. They tried to bring that edge with Josh Donaldson. It just didn't work entirely. They got edge now in a guy that could actually be a superstar. And that's what you can tell for Juan Soto. The problem is right now it's affecting Aaron Judge, who's hitting 198, 730 OPS. Just, it seems he gets the big hit like he did in Toronto, and then you think that gets him going, and it's just not there. His swings look off. And I don't know at this point why the Yankees don't either give him a day off, or if that toe is bothering him or that oblique issue from spring training is bothering him, put him on the IL. The long-term goal for the Yankees got to be to get Aaron Judge right. If you don't go that direction, then flip Soto and Judge in the batting order. Give Judge the 2 spot. Give him more chances to hit, because teams will fear pitching. Will want to pitch to Judge with fearing to face Soto behind him. I'd rather Soto behind him than ahead of him at this point until Judge gets right, because that's the key to this team. Gleyber Torres is another one. Batting .213. Did draw a big walk today in the first inning against Kyle Bradish, but the Yankees didn't take advantage of it. Now, they did miss Alex Verdugo in 3 of these games, who was on paternity leave. Verdugo's back in the lineup today. Oswaldo Cabrera had the big 2-run homer off Corbin Burns last night in a 2-0 win. Luis Gil was excellent. I remember watching Luis Gil in the minor leagues and seeing the velocity on his fastball and the glove popping every time, and it was like, this kid is something special. That's the kind of game where the Yankees, I don't think they realized how good Luis Gil actually could be until that. Your team is on a losing skid, trying to avoid losing 3 games, first 3 games of the series, and he went out there and outdueled an ace. The potential is huge with this guy. The Yankee pitching has held their own. You can't really blame the pitching. Clark Schmidt was good on Monday against Grayson Rodriguez. That was a fun matchup. Nestor Cortez has been okay. Even Carlos Rodon today. Rodon is getting the fastball up to 99 miles an hour. Here's the problem. Even though he's got 6 strikeouts, getting up 3 solo home runs. Gave up a solo shot to Ryan Mountcastle in the 3rd that tied the game. Gave up a home run to former Yankee prospect Jorge Mateo in the 4th, and then gave up a home run to Ryan McKenna. Again, this isn't Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, and those guys. Mountcastle's good. But in a game where you need Rodon to be great, and he does have an ERA right now at 2.95, so he hasn't been terrible by any means, but the contract is going to make the pressure higher for Rodon. I think the Yankees are hoping they get some bullpen pieces back. Nick Birdie's trying to make his way back to help this bullpen, but they don't strike a lot of guys out. And we don't strike a lot of guys out, the defense has to make more plays. Therefore, the errors add up because there's more chances in the field. The Yankee defense is still pretty bad. But again, we talk about all these big issues. They're the first team in the American League to 20 wins without Garrett Cole, with Aaron Judge hitting under 200. I think if you told any Yankee fan that was the case, they would think they were struggling to be a 500 team. That's been the impact Soto's had. No LeMahieu still. Trying to make his way back into the lineup. That'll help things. But Cabrera has earned himself some playing time. And it started to put pressure, I think, on Gleyber Torres at some point. He's got to find it, and he's in the middle of the contract year. Yankees this week will host Detroit for 3 games at the stadium. And then they will have an off day Monday and then host the Astros, who have been absolutely terrible, for 3. That should be an interesting weekend at the stadium. We'll be live next Thursday before the Yankees play a 5 o'clock Thursday game. Interesting start time for that. Meanwhile, the Mets. Mets are home to take on the Cubs. The 4-2 game right now in the bottom of the fifth. Mets were down 4-0 at one point, so they've worked their way back. Adrian Hauser with 4 walks in this game in 5 innings. Cubs took advantage of that. Christopher Morel, a 3-run homer in the fifth, his 5th of the year. He homered off of Edwin Diaz the other night in a game where Luis Severino had a no-hitter into the 7th, and the Mets still somehow found a way to lose. But that's sometimes the tough luck of baseball. Tuesday, they get the big 3-run homer by DJ Stewart in the 6th. Bullpen shuts down the Cubs. They find a way to win 4-2. And then last night. Last night was weird. Mets do nothing against Shoto Imanaga. They try to rally in the 8th. Francisco Lindor was out of the lineup today due to an illness. Left the game in the 3rd inning yesterday. And it felt that Carlos Mendoza was emptying the bench an inning too early. You go to the 9th. Pete Alonso gets hit with a pitch by Hector Neris. J.D. Martinez doubles off of Pete Crow Armstrong's glove. Mets have 2nd and 3rd. Jeff McNeil's up. He hits a fly ball to left. Ian Happ catches it. They send Pete Alonso, which again, with 1 out, I would argue you shouldn't in that case. The ball wasn't deep enough. Brandon Nimmo's on deck. You can't tell me Brandon Nimmo can't get a base hit that wins the game. You never want to make the last out at the plate. Even have a chance to make a last out at the plate. If that ball's a little deeper, then yeah, I understand it. That ball wasn't deep enough. But Happ makes a relay throw to Nick Madrigal, who fires it into Miguel Amaya. Amaya tags Alonso. Alonso's ruled out. Now, there was the argument of blocking the plate. Mets challenged it. It was determined that there was no blocking or that Pete didn't get the hand in. Mendoza gets it mad. And it was interesting that the SNY mics picked this up. The crew chief, which I think is Chad Fairchild, says to Mendoza, "It's not my call. Talk to New York." Which is kind of like if you're at your job and someone blames you and you said, "It's not my fault. Talk to my boss." It felt kind of that situation. And it makes you wonder, you see these replay guys both in Chelsea for baseball, and let's say Secaucus with the NBA. Why doesn't one of them make the call or like show it on the Jumbotron what they're looking at? It makes the umpire or the official who's looking at it, in baseball's case, it's New York looking at it, not them. So why doesn't baseball have where they go down and look at the monitor and see what they're seeing? They used to do that. They haven't done that anymore. So Mendoza references a memo that says the catcher can't stand on the plate. And then Andy Martino from SNY tweets out the email or the memo about where the catchers are standing. First off, it's a possibility they're blocking the plate. It doesn't mean they're actually blocking the plate. If you look at the angle of the throw, it's hard to do this without being on. Hopefully, if we're on StreamYard, I could actually, in the future, I can show you this. If you look at the angle SNY gave, the ball, Amaya is starting on the left side of home plate. As Madrigal, who makes an excellent relay, throws it in, Amaya is going to the right side of the plate. He's still giving Alonso a path, but he has to go field the ball on the other side. And the rule is, if the throw is pulling you into the runner, you are allowed to stay where Amaya stayed. You could argue the blocking of the plate rule is ridiculous, and part of it is. It's still umpire's discretion. But the Mets, I won't say they got robbed. I think that the umpires got it right. Baseball, even Steve Gelbus and Wise said in the Mets pregame show, they talked to somebody at the commissioner's office last night, and baseball stands by that call. In the end, don't lose 1-0. But you could argue that situation. So Mets are trying to go for the split this afternoon. They just left the bases loaded in the 5th. So they trail 4-2 in the 6th. Couple things, though, to talk about the Mets. Their bullpen, which I've talked about in the show before, one of the best in the month of April. And you look at all the options between Reed Garrett, Sean Reed Foley's come back and looked really good throwing a fastball in the mid-90s. Jorge Lopez, a guy with closer experience, has done a nice job. And then throwing out Avino, who's been practically unhittable to begin the year. And Edwin Diaz hasn't even been the best reliever on the team yet. So the Mets have a strength there as long as they don't overwork it. That's a key thing. When Adrian Hauser's only giving you 5 innings a night and you've got Tyler McGill working his way back and David Peterson working his way back and Senga working his way back, there's going to be cause for some shuffling in that rotation at some point. The other big thing was Luis Severino. He looks more confident. It's a guy that looks like a pitcher that had the potential to succeed with the Yankees, not the guy who couldn't find his confidence in the second half last year and was the worst pitcher in the game, admittedly by him. I was at the game in Baltimore where he gave up 6 in the first inning, and it's like, what happened to Severino? Guy pitching with a 1-year deal, and he loves New York. It's clear. But it feels like a weight got lifted from him, and he's starting to look like the guy he used to look. And if he's healthy the whole year and he's doing this, the Mets have found their number 2 with Kodai Senga when Senga returns. Mets are on the road this week. They're in Tampa and they're in St. Louis. Yes, it's a road trip, but the Rays are last in the AL East, and the Cardinals are almost last in the NL Central if Ralph's Pirates, which need to call Paul Skeens up just to spark something, if the Mets are on the road, but you got to take advantage of 2 under 500 teams. Yes, I know if the Mets lose, say they're under 500, but got to find a way to make hay on the road, because when they come back home playing the Braves and Phillies, which could be the 2 best teams in the National League right now, you don't want to get it to where you're chasing the schedule. Let's go to do some soccer real quick before we end this show with some hockey in our final segment. And we'll start with the hottest team in soccer in the month of April, and that was NYCFC, who have worked their way back into the mix. They had that long road trip, a long homestand. They took on Charlotte. Keaton Park scored in the 41st minute after Charlotte got the opening goal. And then Adrian Martinez, 3 minutes into stoppage time, gets the go-ahead goal. NYC wins it 2-1. Matthew Freese has been really good at net for this team. And you look at a guy, there's been 2 players that have been the resurgence, Julian Fernandez and Santiago Rodriguez. Those have been the players that have been the mix. Rodriguez has 4 goals for this team, and Fernandez with 2 goals and 2 assists. So this is an NYCFC team that is starting to find its flow. They were toward the bottom of the table. Now they moved up inside the top 6, which is huge for what this team has been doing right now. They're at 14 points. Their next game is going to be this Sunday. They're going to take on Colorado Rapids, who have 15 points. 4 goals from Rafael Navarro, so that should be a fun game out at Citi Field. So a chance to continue that homestand for NYCFC. The Red Bulls, second straight game they had to play with 10 men on the field for the bulk of the game. Noah Ellie gets a red card. And Vancouver had a 1-0 lead. Brian White scored in the 15th minute, but then Lewis Morgan with a goal to tie it in the 56th minute. They get a red card in the 74th minute. They play the last 15 minutes. Vancouver has been one of the better teams in the West. So, yes, you don't like the Red Bulls are getting these red cards and playing short men, and then you get another guy kicked out for a game. But finding a way to get points is always a big key. Red Bulls right now are 3rd in the East at 17 points, and they are going to have a big test this Saturday. Because guess who they're going to play? 7:30 Eastern, down in Florida. It's Lionel Messi and Miami FC. Miami is 6-3-2 on the season. The Red Bulls did win March 23rd in Harrison, New Jersey 4-0, but Messi didn't play. You hate using that caveat, but it's just the reality of the beast. Miami, since Messi came back, he got 2 goals against New England on April 27th, 2 goals against Nashville the week prior to that. This is a tall order for the Red Bulls defense. But can they find a way to get a point on the road? They've been one of the better road teams in MLS. Does that continue? Take one more break. We'll come back and we'll preview Rangers Hurricanes. We don't know officially when game 1 is. We think we know. And we'll dive into the particulars of that series coming up next here on New York State of Sports. One more commercial and we'll wrap it up after this.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies,
And your one-timers,
you wicked wristas.
and be sure to protect your 5-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
One of the guests they had, some of the stuff we're actually going to get him on one of the post-game shows for Rangers Hurricanes for round 2. So we'll continue those Rangers post-games. Like I said, probably going to do one Sunday night, Monday morning after Game 1, because right now we don't know the time of Game 1, but we know that Game 1 is going to be Sunday in all likelihood, because they can't make it Saturday right now because you don't know if the Knicks are going to play Saturday or not, which would be great to have the Garden host Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday kind of vibe and just get that first round feeling that you had again. But we brought it up a little bit last time we did the Knicks Islanders post-game show. Islanders season, of course, is over after losing to the Hurricanes. But Rangers Hurricanes, and it strikes me why the Rangers are underdogs in this series. I don't know if people in Vegas wanted to bet the Rangers, but this is a team that won the President's Trophy. It's a team that played very well in round 1 and has a shot to knock off. These are two teams that really don't like each other. Rangers were good against them in the regular season. They won 2 out of 3. Igor Shesterkin was especially really good against Carolina. These two teams have played twice in the playoffs the last few years. Carolina won in the bubble in 2020 in a sweep. Rangers 1-7 2 years ago, but this Ranger team is more well-rested than it was 2 years ago. They played 20 games in 40 days 2 years ago. Now they've going to have a week off. Does that affect things? I don't think so. I think you'd rather have the rest than the rust. Just because you have time to 7-game series to get the flow, and you got home ice. To me, home ice in this series matters a ton. Carolina was not good on the road in that series 2 years ago. They're better this year, but I'd rather have that home ice advantage. The question is, what do the Rangers do with Phil Peedle? It sounds like the Rangers aren't going to mess with things that much. They've tried him in different lines with Adam Fox missing practice yesterday, and they've tried him in different areas. And Don LaGreca, who does a good job on the Michael Kay Show and hosts the Game Misconduct podcast, gave the quote, he's been told by several people it would take an injury or something significantly bad in the series, like dropping the first 2 games to shake things up in regards to Hedl. Look, if you're going to, it sounds like if that is the case, then you're using Phil Peedle as a in case of emergency button, which is never a bad thing to have. But that's the question here. Do you want to mess with a good thing the Rangers have right now, that flow, everybody's contributing? And Hedl is a big part of this team. You saw the kid line 2 years ago, what he's capable of being. Like, would you put him as the third-line center and take Wenberg out? Would you keep Matt Rempe in the series to make Carolina match somebody with Rempe? My X factor is, I think, Adam Fox for his defense and his ability to shoot, to get the puck in the net as an offensive defenseman, if you will. We look at the Rangers and we know Kreider, we know Zibanejad, we know Panarin. Vincent Trocheck was another one. Former Hurricane has looked a lot more comfortable with the Rangers this year than last year. I think he's a guy. But Fox was a former guy that got traded from Carolina to the Rangers. And he's been one of the better defensemen in the NHL. But the Rangers have this great nucleus right now that Carolina's a little bit banged up defensively, but it sounds like Tony DeAngelo is okay. Brent Pesci's going to work his way back into the mix. But this is a Hurricane team that has some experience. They brought in Jake Gensel. You love Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis and Teravainen and Svechnikov. They've got guys that can match. Both these teams are good on the power play and good on the penalty kill. The Rangers took too many penalties against the Capitals. They can't do that in this series. If they can stay out of the box and play from in front with the power play, they're going to be fine. A couple of things from the chat. Ralph says he thinks he sees Pete Alonso's last days in a Met uniform. I don't think just yet. It's interesting if, I think if Pete does go somewhere, it's ironically to the team they're playing. In the Cubs, he does good against Chicago, and he's talked about being a big Chicago guy. But until Pete leaves, the guy wants to be a Met. I think he takes pride in being a Met. So I don't... Here's the thing, though. If you get Juan Soto, if the Mets are interested, you can't get Soto and Alonso. It's got to be one or the other. Because I think Scott Boras is going to have Pete take a lot of money. But who's going to give it to him? To me, it'd be the team in Wrigley that would. They need a first baseman in the worst way. Taryn says, if the Knicks lose the series to the Sixers... ... I don't know if this is a fill in the blank. If it is a fill in the blank... The Knicks lose the series to the Sixers. Tom Thibodeau's on the hot seat. I don't think he would be fired. But the Knicks, if they did blow this series, would lose a lot of goodwill with the fan base, number one. Number two, puts a lot of pressure, would put a lot of pressure on Leon Rose and this front office to get a superstar in here. Get a Robin to Jalen Brunson's Batman. Number three, you would then now start to really criticize Tom Thibodeau for the lack of the rotations, lack of players that he has been able to play, not doing the load management, not doing, like, playing Josh Hart 45 minutes a night during the regular season. Those things will get more scrutinized. And you're going to start to say, okay, big picture, what does it mean? Now, the Sixers are not your normal 7 seed. This is a team that, if Joel Embiid was healthy, is probably a top 4 seed in the East with him and Maxey. So I don't think that the Knicks would necessarily blow the team up if they lost. But it would take a lot of the equity that got built up and then all the talk of conference final during when they made the OG trade and everybody was playing well. It sinks. It naturally should sink. I mean, if they lose the series, Game 5 goes down as an all-time collapse. It goes down with the Reggie Millers from the 90s with the Pacers. It goes down with all the heartbreaking moments in New York sports. One of the more if they do lose, Game 5 would be one of the heartbreaking moments in New York sports. That would just be the way it is. I don't want to have to talk about that. If the Knicks do lose, we might do a top 5 heartbreaking moments in New York sports on next week's show. I want to be coming back to you Monday talking about the Knicks are in the second round and the Rangers in the second round, and we're doing 2 or 3 or 4 post-game shows a week with the way this series had been going. But again, I think we're getting a Game 7. I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks won tonight, but you gotta show me something. So here's the thing: we mentioned at the top of the show. No post-games Thursday, which would be today. If there is a Game 7 Saturday, there won't be a post-game Saturday. We will have our next show, we'll look out for here on where you get your podcasts, will be Sunday night / Monday morning. If the Ranger game is Sunday, which again it sounds like it will, we will do a show recapping Game 1 of Rangers Hurricanes and looking at whatever the Knicks are. Are they out by then? Are they preparing for... Or are they preparing for Game 1 against Indiana or Milwaukee? I think they match up better with Indiana if that does happen, because I want no part of Lillard and Giannis in a best of 7. I know Giannis isn't there right now, but the specter of Giannis and the specter of Damian Lillard, if the Knicks do win and they find that there's a Game 7 in that other series, I'm rooting the heck for Indiana, because you can match up with the Pacers. Yes, Halliburton would be just as big a problem as Maxey would, but you also have to figure out what the Pacers can't match you. You can defend against Indiana. The problem is, can the Knicks get secondary scoring otherwise? Just real quickly, Yankee game has unraveled out of control. They are down 7-2 in the 6th, although Gleyber Torres did homer, but Carlos Rodon doesn't even get out of the 5th inning. That's a major concern. And the Mets have fought back. It was a 4-0 game. They have cut the lead to 5-4 on a 2-run double by Francisco Lindor, who's pinch hitting. So Lindor makes an impact there. Jets rookie minicamp begins this weekend. So we'll talk about that on Thursday's show. Giants rookie minicamp will start next Thursday. So we'll see what the rookies do early on, and I'll have some fun with that. So in closing, I think the Knicks will I think they'll still win this series. I had them in 6 to begin. You could say, hey, why are you picking them to lose today? Maybe to me, it's just a specter of Game 5 of losing. I think if they had maybe lost Game 5 in a different way, I might be more inclined to pick them tonight. But can this team get off the mat? Can they show that grit? Can they show that resilience? Can they get on the boards? Can they get the loose balls? Can they show they want it more? Or does it go back to a do-or-die Game 7, which is fun if you're watching, but you're not fun when you have a team in the fight and you're sweating everything. And it would be an exciting crowd at the Garden, but it's one that would be nervous and waiting for the other shoe to drop. So that should be fun. That'll be, again, we got so much to do. Yankees and Mets are in May. Knicks are in the playoffs. Rangers in the playoffs. Soccer teams are playing well. And maybe next week we'll do an update on the Gotham FC squad too. Lots to dive into. Again, follow me on Twitter @Leader555. Follow the show on Twitter @NYC Sports IE. Tune in later tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, Magic